True Popular Science Film Studios production, Siberian Horizons. The horizons of Siberia are customarily considered to be boundless, and actually they are. But this film is about other horizons, geological horizons of western Siberia, and in particular, deep-lying gas-bearing strata. It goes without saying that these formations cannot be detected visually, so geologists are in controversy over presumptive evidence. Costly prospecting in western Siberia was unsuccessful because the sediments of Mesozoic and Permian age were deposited in cold climatic conditions, non-conducive to the accumulation of organic matter. Academician Shatsky, speaking of prospecting priorities, put western Siberia almost at the bottom of the list. Yet the very first expeditions into western Siberia, back in the 1930s, led by Vasiliev, produced proof that this area had an outlook. But it was only some 20 years later that drilling began in Beryozovo, which ultimately resulted in what would later be called the discovery of the century. Drilling foreman on the job was geologist Bystritsky. The borehole ran into solid granite, and when they began to pull up the drill pipe, there was a sudden outburst of gas. This was an emergency situation. For 215 days and nights, they fought the roarer. However, 4.5 years of drilling thereafter produced no results. The controversy continued. Some even drew a boundary line, north of which nothing definite could be counted on. Rutherford once said that every science passes through a stage when, owing to insufficient knowledge, scientists are compelled to replace proof and disproof by belief and disbelief. Ervье Yu.G, chief geologist of Tyumen, was one of those who believed in Siberia, believed in the possibility of a discovery. Today, a discovery is the culmination of long effort by many people. But this does not in the least detract from the role of the individual. It isn't enough for a geologist to believe that he is right. He must convince others of that too. At the end of the 1950s, when western Siberia was essentially still a blank spot for geologists, investing tremendous funds in this taiga, this endless unbroken morass, meant taking a big risk. Present-day geological prospecting is a motorized operation employing heavy steel equipment. Geologists have to push their way through the swampy taiga, dragging along a ton of this equipment for every meter of test well. But in order that this costly and heavy drilling equipment bore into the ground with greater certainty, there still is the prospector of prospectors to fall back on. This is the geophysicist, who's in the vanguard. It goes without saying that he too does not see the gas-bearing horizons, but he hears them. The horizon reflects the detonation of a blast.
Слава! Проверь северную косу, что-то не работает.
The complicated and hazardous job of the blaster requires high precision, long training, and cool-headedness.
Убери с рыхлого снега сейсмографы. Поправь сейсмографы. Так. Хорошо. Володя, иди на станцию. Жду тебя. У меня все готово. Спокойно на профиле, спокойно. Тихо на профиле. Работаем. Работаем.
In modern science, research and its organization are indivisible. Science can be planned. The state plan can even foresee a discovery. However, it should be remembered that enthusiasts have far more foresight than anyone else and prove to be right more often.
Не бояться нужно, а проявить определенную осторожность. Опыта у ребят нет, могут встретиться с аномальным давлением. Вот поезжай, сам увидишь первую нефть. Правильно. Ну, ты прекрасно понимаешь значение этого дела. Открыть крупное месторождение нефти под крупным же месторождением газа – это дело огромной важности. И, по сути дела, по-другому выглядеть будут перспективы севера Тюменской области. Полетай. Будь здоров.
The conviction entertained by Эрвье, now a Lenin Prize winner, was firmly substantiated. It rested on knowledge, experience, and intuition. Much has been said about the romance and the hardships of work in the taiga in the north. It must be stated outright that there is much more of the hardships. A great deal of patience, inherent tact, and humor is needed to live together like this for many long months. As people are different, they have different dispositions, different habits, different likes and dislikes. A work shift here is called a watch, like it is on board ship. Work hums the clock round.
Понял вас. Выслать первым же рейсом 2 турбобура. Выслать первым же рейсом 2 турбобура.
Reports are transmitted day and night by radio from the drilling rigs. More often than not, they tell of failures. No gasser yet. Water pressure was increased, but then the flame was choked. And sometimes a great many days pass before news of a gas blowout comes in.
При увеличении напора вода совсем забивает пламя.
Ходили в водичку. Но вы попытайтесь. На малых шайбах пласт, видимо, работать будет чистым газом. Определите количество выносимой воды, а газ отправляйте в Тюмень на анализ.
Понял вас, понял. Отработать на малых шайбах, определить количество воды, а газ отправлять в Тюмень.
21,
Calling 21. This is north. How do you get me? Over. North, this is 21. The tubing is being lowered. About 150 meters left to go.
Хорошо. Следите за раствором. За раствором следите. Как понял? Прием.
Понял, понял. Примите небольшой заказ на продукты.
Like ships at sea, the drilling rigs are scattered over the tundra with many miles of uninhabited land in between. Nothing encouraging to report yet. We drilled down very little during the night. It's freezing weather. The bitter cold congeals the drilling mud. In drilling, the mud plays the same vital role as the blood does in the vessels. But the paradox of it is that you can get down to real work here only in winter, because only then can the required equipment be hauled in, as the bitter frost transforms this endless quagmire into something firm.
Неважно. За ночь пробурили очень мало. Мороз, сильный мороз. Раствор прихватывает раствор. Пришлось проложить другой.
Nansen once said that one can't get used to bitter cold, one has to endure it. And suppose it's accompanied by a blizzard. Suppose all aircraft are grounded. That happens for weeks on end. And yet, the gas-bearing horizons of Siberia are clearing up. Gradually, their contours are beginning to appear from under the ground. The sounds that geophysicists catch are translated into mineral resources maps. Of course, only the drill alone can verify a map's accuracy decisively. But in order to increase to the maximum the probability of making a strike, precise calculation, a substantiated scientific forecast is required. And still, the risk remains. Each of these so-called cumulative charges possesses an extraordinary and, most important, precisely directed force of explosion. Once exploded, each charge broaches and then burns into the well's opposite wall. That's a way of checking whether the risk was justified. It was. The gas-bearing formation has begun to blow out. This is a great moment for the geologist, who probably possesses an unconveyable sense of discovery, when the bowels of the earth open up and the gas returns to the sun, by whose energy, accumulated over millions of years, it was created. And here is the natural consequence of the discovery of the century. Hundreds of gas wells, one after another. Vast gas fields, one after another. The Yu.G, the largest of all, for example, can keep a city like Leningrad supplied with gas for 1,000 years. Hundreds of cities, large and small, can heat with the gas that flows from here through 2.5-meter pipes. Making pipes of that diameter was no simple matter either. No one had ever manufactured them. The world jealously followed developments in Siberia. It is expedient to lay pipelines of that diameter only from extra-large gas fields. The Russians planned the world's biggest pipeline. Half of Russia's explored gas reserves lie in western Siberia. The oil reserves discovered in the middle reaches of the Ob are also tremendous. The Russians call this area the third Baku. But all this natural wealth is buried in one of the most rigorous regions on Earth.
Russian plans call for developing.
Cut off from one another by the taiga and swamps, towns and settlements froze here, frowning from under the snow as though waiting for the discovery of the century so as to come back to life and begin rebuilding from bottom up, the way Tyumen, the oldest Russian city in Siberia, did. Now Tyumen is the capital of a vast territory extending all the way to the Arctic Ocean. That is how the Siberian horizons are brightening. The discovery of the century drew new people into its orbit, joining them to the enthusiasts who early that 1953 September morning in Beryozovo first heard the voice of Siberia's mineral wealth. Script, Julius Boxerman and Nikolai Churikov. Direction and photography, Anatoly Firsov.